And our video wasn't nearly as good as any of that. So that's a tough act to follow. We got to get up here and talk about money now.
And just so you know, Jeff wants to go to the camp.
Well, we're blessed and we're really honored to give this talk this morning on stewardship. And I thought I'd just spend an extra moment or two just introducing myself and Val. We are also an RC tag team couple. I think it's so beautiful when you see couples doing this work together, and that can bear so much greater fruit when the couple or the family is involved. We do a lot of couples apostolate together. Some of you have probably heard C4. We love alliterations, Catholic Couples, Cocktails in Christ. I also launched Holy Happy Hour, which we call H3. And so we do this couples work together, and Val does some of her spiritual guidance with the ladies, and I do what I can with the gentlemen. But we're very, very pleased to be here to give this talk. Also, because of the little routines we tend to have from time to time, people have kind of said we're like the Sonny and Cher of Regnum Christi. I don't know. We'll see.
We decided we look like Sonny and Cher. But there's nothing like feeling so humbled to be in front of you and to share. And there's nothing like having the 9 a.m. slot on a Sunday morning to talk about stewardship. So we're going to try to make it as fun as we can.
One of the things when we think about this is, and I think we heard it so beautifully actually in Father Mark's homily yesterday, is, what is God asking of us? And listening to God. And I think that's one of the ways to try to get this idea of stewardship kind of firmly implanted in your mind. It's very important to realize stewardship is not fundraising. Fundraising can be part of stewardship, but stewardship is really holistic planning, taking care of the future, having a vision of where you want to go, and then executing on that in a thoughtful way to lead to kind of a continuity in the outcome. Whereas fundraising is, we may have a task, we've got a goal to reach, we're going to, come up with a plan to execute that, and we're going to do that. And you kind of make it analogous to kind of a family situation. And one of the reasons that we need to focus on this is we're a family, and we need to take care of the entire family, the long-term needs of the movement, the retirement and health care of our priests. These sorts of things that maybe are not as tangible today, but are, part of a much broader holistic vision of what we need to accomplish. So if I thought about it from a family standpoint, stewardship would kind of be Val and I doing our family planning, making sure our kids can go to college, the family budget, talking about these things. And I guess fundraising is me going to work and getting the paycheck, right? And so there's really a difference between the two.
And I think the one thing that we thought about as we prepared the talk and we prayed about this was that what did we keep asking ourselves? And we invite everybody here this morning as we share some thoughts, and please remember we are a work in progress, so we don't have all the answers, but through prayer, one of the things that kept coming to us is that what is God asking of us? And I think that's a question for you to ask yourselves as you listen to some of these thoughts this morning. What is God asking of you? What is God asking of us as a spiritual family? What are some of the new directions and the new disciplines that we have to do to be strategic as a loving family? Because I think we all would agree that when you sit down to do your own budget, irregardless of your state in life or your vocation, you do have to talk about money, right? And within a family, there's some very candid conversations about money, even though some people sometimes would rather avoid the discussion. And Jeff wants to share a story about our girls and stewardship.
It was actually quite funny. About 8 years ago, I decided to leave the Wall Street firm that I had worked at. Was unhappy with the culture there, actually was the primary thing, and decided I was going to start my own business. And we called the girl, we sat sitting down for dinner, and I told them what I was planning, and they were 10 or 12 at this time. And the first thing they said is, "Dad, can we still go to college?" So clearly they didn't understand that their father had a view of stewardship and taking care of the family. And so people really worry about money, and we understand that, but it's, if you plan and you take a holistic view of things, you can get it accomplished.
So the talk this morning and the points we want to cover is this discussion as a spiritual family of stewardship. But the bigger picture and the vision here is that how, as a Regnum Christi family and as a movement, do we develop a culture of generosity? And we all know in our hearts, we do give time. We do share our talents and our spiritual gifts. And we do share as generously as we can with what God has given us. But the bottom line is, it's been entrusted to us, and that we have to always give off the top. So the challenge will be, how as a spiritual family do we keep cultivating this culture of generosity? How do we step it up? How do we find new ways to be generous? And getting back to that question, what is the Lord asking of us here as a movement?
So when we think about stewardship, this is what we often think about. Our brothers in Cheshire, Val and I absolutely love the brothers.
Really love.
We send cookies to Rome. Well, actually, not cookies, brown sugar and chocolate chips. They have to make cookies themselves. We went to Rome this past December for ordinations, and one of the brothers we love, Brother Anthony, emailed Valerie and said, "Could you bring brown sugar and chocolate chips with you to Rome?"
So I bought 4 pounds. And Jeff goes, "I'm not putting that in my suitcase. They're going to think it's cocaine." So I go, "Jeff, I must bring Brother Anthony this brown sugar." So we have to be creative here. And he goes, "I'll carry it on and go through security. I'm not putting it in my suitcase."
Yeah, but I decided it should be in my carry-on bag, because I could just imagine the X-ray machine in this dense brown material. It's either a bomb or cocaine or something. It's like, but they were actually fine with it. They kind of thought I was a little strange for having sugar, but that was a long flight,
But the brothers, to us, really represent the future of the movement. These are the young men that are going to be our LCs in 10 to 12 years. These young men are, hope to God, going to baptize our grandchildren someday. And so when we think about stewardship as a spiritual family, we must think about, in formation, our consecrated women. Those women that we're forming. We must think about the brothers, and that we must realize that they have been entrusted to us as a spiritual family.
So to move on, we do have a firm commitment as an RC member to think about stewardship, and in addition to the apostolate, be mindful of financial needs and the needs of the organization to sustain itself. I won't read these directly. They're there for you to see. But I actually, whoops, laser pointer. I thought this was interesting. Support the material needs of the movement according to their possibilities. So everyone has a different situation. But really think about what your possibilities are. Again, this is not just kind of spare change. I mean, do what you can do. And there was a great quote from C.S. Lewis, and he said, "I do not believe one can settle how much we ought to give. I am afraid the only safe rule is to give more than you can spare." Interesting quote. The fire team, that big E at the end is about economy. Right, and that's something we need to remember. It's if you're running your apostolate in a lively, full way, a lot of this comes naturally. But when I moved into the position of RC Local Director for the Tri-State, which I'm not in that position anymore, thanks be to God. But we had a lot of programs that were great programs, but there was no budgets, and we didn't know if they were self-sustaining. And they had a higher spiritual value. There were things we wanted to do, and there might be things where you say, "Hey, we don't want to make money on this program," or "We're casting a net and we're evangelizing." But that should be an intentional decision, not just doing things and not understanding what they cost and what the ramifications are. And so this is a very important part of just planning your apostolate and really thinking about how you're doing it. This personal accompaniment is also very important. I didn't tell Val I was going to ask her this, but you might just spend a moment about the fundraising team and the ladies who are non-RC and the accompaniment they received and the impact that had on our effort.
One of the things that we thought about this year as we created a new paradigm for our fundraising in Tri-State is to think about, okay, how do we bring more apostles in? How do we accompany more people? And of course, we must raise money. We must fundraise. But in order to cultivate more people to become donors long-term and to be intentional about their donations to us, we decided we were going to develop this promotion team for our fundraising effort, with the goal being first to develop donors and second to raise money. Father John, don't worry, we're going to be on it. But the whole idea here was that people that we had accompanied for a long time, that had been exposed to us and had really spent time with the fathers and were starting to understand the mission, we invited people to be on this promotion team purposefully that were not Regnum Christi. They were apostles. And they went out and they promoted the fundraiser, which is going to be the whole theme of the better part, choosing the better part every single day. And Father John Bartunik is coming in to give that talk for us. But these women that came on this team are extraordinary. And they love the fathers. And they're beginning to understand the mission and beginning to understand our spiritual family. But the one thing that they came to the table with, besides their talents and their gifts and their treasure, was that they had this deep love and gratitude for the accompaniment that they had received through Regnum Christi members, but more particularly through the legionaries of Christ that have stayed by their side all these years, and we've never formally asked for anything. And when we asked them to be part of a promotion team, understanding that we needed to raise money for the brothers, for our legionary community, and also for the Regnum Christi operation, they said yes right away. And that was a real game changer for us to try to work towards how do we continue to accompany people, and what are these invitations that we need to be giving to people? Are we always feeling comfortable to ask? And sometimes the ask doesn't have to be a direct ask for money. Sometimes we need to start with asking them to share their talents with us and their time so that they can be in relationship with us.
And I think also the importance of that is that was so effective in a sense in that these people, I think, had a sense of our stewardship, that we were serious about what we were doing, that we had a plan, we knew the purpose, we knew how we were going to execute it, and that naturally draws people in who want to help you, right? So setting that example and letting people really kind of internalize that and let it happen organically is very important and very helpful.
So we sat down and we said, okay, what are we going to outline that stewardship is? We took a step back and we said, okay, again, what is God asking of us? What is God asking of us as a Regnum Christi couple? And what is God asking of us to move forward and share with you? And we started thinking about, why is it so hard to talk about money? We're in Tri-State, so it is a big wilderness out there. As much as you think there's a lot of cement, it's wilderness. And one of the things we had to get to is, let's really focus on what is wrong with the culture. It's a throwaway culture. It's a culture that doesn't hold on to anything. It's a culture that has a lot of clutter, mentally, spiritually, and emotionally, right? Never mind physically. It's a culture that constantly wants more garages because they want more stuff. They work longer hours. They run faster to get on a train. Is this constant pressure and build-up, and never mind all the noise that really doesn't allow the message to get through. So when thinking about that, we think about, what are we trying to be good stewards of? And for a lot of people in this throwaway culture, they're always trying to find more areas to put their stuff. So we have amazing storage units in Tri-State. And you just have to think about, what do we want to try to get to develop this culture of generosity and develop a model? We have to start to feel comfortable to turn on the tap. There is nothing wrong with tap water. But what do we say in this culture? And I do it too. You're going to go get a bottle of water. You're not turning on the taps spiritually or physically. So when we look at what is stewardship, stewardship is always off the top. It's not the leftovers. It's always off the top. It must become a way of life according to the gospel. For all of us, it has to become a way of life. The reminder that God owns everything and that we are just stewards of everything that He has given us. And as Jeff pointed out here, we are actually just His money manager with fiduciary responsibility. That for all of us as a spiritual family, we have to start, as Matthew Kelly says, to start to look at the spirituality of money. Not this cold, hard cash view, right? But the spirituality of money for all of us. So how do we make it a way of life? How do we start to develop a model of generosity and stewardship? We take the words in Psalm 24, which I love, is that the earth is the Lord's and all that is in it. We recognize that part of our God-given makeup is we all have a need to give. It feels good to give. We feel happier when we give. We feel good when we help somebody, when we can do something for somebody. The call is to return a portion of your time and your talent, your possessions, and then this idea of planned and consistent giving. That's where you always can then give off the top. An intentionality to give, a planned way to give. And that's where the goal becomes in developing the generosity.
When you have plans, the fear abates, right? I think that's really the important thing. And again, as I mentioned earlier, when we demonstrate as an organization that we have a plan, naturally, organically, a lot will flow from that. People have a tendency to want to help. They obviously don't want to throw money away, though, right? They want to understand that we as an organization also are good stewards of their capital. So, a little interesting guy here. He's got a bottle of spring water and it's summer. He's not sure.
And he has not turned on the tap.
He has not turned on the tap. We've found a couple things that kind of bothered us, and maybe it's just they're just I don't know. They're symptoms of the way people think. But we have a pretty big Christmas party every year. It's kind of a big deal. All the LCs come, 150 people there. And in lieu of any kind of hostess gift or anything, we do a food drive. We had a situation where someone left a 12-year-old box of cereal. And we actually know it's not a mistake because the lady that was helping us greet people heard the husband and wife arguing over, he wanted to leave it, she said we can't, and they left it. So, that's just, not to pick on, obviously I'm not going to name names, but there's kind of this thing that some people have that whatever, and, let me throw a little something out there, and, so I think we have to be mindful. I mean, this is a very nice couple, actually. I think, I bet this actually burdens them. I don't think they wanted to behave like this, but I think there's just kind of this instinct that happens that I'm not sure, I don't have money, let's just do something easy. And we really got to try to counter that over time. Val had a very similar situation too.
We all love the idea of leftovers, right? Most people like leftovers. I love leftovers. But when it comes to almsgiving, and when it comes to stewardship, we really don't want to give our leftovers, right? We want to be able to provide whatever we want to provide for our family. That's what we would want to offer to somebody else's family. So in taking care of ourselves as a spiritual family, we have to watch what becomes a leftover versus what is off the top. And, years ago with my nonprofit, we were always doing food drives with children to promote volunteerism. And one of the things that we really tried to show the kids is that if we give you a list and we say, this is what people in a food scarcity situation need to eat, that's what we get. boxed milk, cereal, peanut butter, dried beans. So one year, and we always made them check expiration dates, and if something was expired, it would go in a separate pile to show them that we don't give expired items to people that are hungry. And one person in the pile put clam sauce. Now, I don't know about you. I'm not a good cook, so I don't really cook with clam sauce, but I know that Latino communities where we live need dry beans and they don't cook with clam sauce. So here again, the intention of the person was good. They wanted to do something kind, but we have to get back to the intentionality, and we have to get back to what's off the top. And that what is it that we're asking for that we need to take care of a family?
So my lovely wife developed this idea of turn on the tap. How do we rectify this? We need to teach, we need to ask, and we need to persevere. And you know, this analogy of the tap and water, I think, actually is very powerful. Val alluded to a moment ago about, you know, water bottles. I looked up some statistics. You know, in the United States, we consume 50 billion water bottles. And by one estimate, only 23% of the plastic in the country is recycled. So when you work through the math on that, that's 13 million barrels of oil to make that plastic that's not recycled. And if you don't know the size of a barrel of oil, that's 546 million gallons of gasoline. So just the waste that happens when people don't think about turning on the tap and have a view of really kind of what their actions might mean. So how do we get after this? We do have to teach. I think, you know, back to my comment about the cereal, that may not have happened with some more teaching or the clam sauce. I love this quote from St. Francis of Assisi: preach the gospel and use words if necessary. We really have to witness. We have to witness, we have to ask, what is it that God is asking of us? But I think this has to be part of our formation. So I would also, you know, challenge the leadership and the fathers. Obviously, you're not going to ask for money in spiritual direction, but this idea of stewardship and to really kind of inculcate this idea and you know, get people to understand what it means and how important it is. We can do this through retreats, through accompaniment, as Val mentioned. And one thing that we also found valuable that we did in our locality is we did a spiritual gifts workshop, which may lead to many different things. You know, Val certainly has, if you know Val, a spiritual gift of hospitality. You know, we all have different spiritual gifts, but this will actually help people kind of understand what their talents are. And again, stewardship doesn't only mean money. If you have a gift in some other place that isn't being fully utilized and can help build and grow the kingdom, you want to nourish that gift, and you want to grow in that gift.
We also just want to be careful too that, right, as we keep asking people to give more time because of all the wonderful apostolates that we have and the needs that we have within localities, we want to make sure that people are working on an apostolate where that is actually their spiritual gift, so they feel joyful. If we assign people to apostolates and it's not their spiritual gift, they're going to be dragging. And I think one of the things to seriously consider is thinking about, for your Regnum Christi people in your locality, doing a spiritual gifts inventory, doing the workshop. It's very, very powerful. We've continued to do this now annually as a Regnum Christi workshop, giving it to the Walking with Purpose women in our locality, as many as can attend. And that's to allow apostles to start to identify their spiritual gifts. It's something that Father John had encouraged us to do several years ago in Tri-State, and it was very, very fruitful, and our members really appreciated it and enjoyed it. So it's a good tool for all of us to have.
But we have to teach it.
The ask. Usually you hear the ask and you say, whoa, they're coming for money, right? We have to make the ask. But a lot of times though, when we're looking at a model of stewardship, We have to start to get away from this transactional model and move towards a relationship. Eyeball to eyeball. Now I know everyone here loves to text and we love to email, and I'm not a techie, all the other things that my daughters do. But the idea is though, when I receive a text and somebody asks me a question, and they send me an email and then ask me the same question and they haven't gone eyeball to eyeball with me, I really have to wonder at the sincerity of that and how important it is. If you send me a text, it's just so that it's expedited, you got a quick question, and I'll get right back to you. But when you have something important as stewardship and taking care of the family, we need to go eyeball to eyeball with each other, and we need to develop our relationship with each other. We need to be able to express the concern and the need and why this is so important. And that's, as Jeff alluded to, is overcoming our fear. Are we ourselves witnessing? Are we evangelizing? Are we trying to pave the way and show people how to do this? And are people always awaiting our ask? If people are not awaiting your ask, then they're not really quite sure what you're doing. But when you approach somebody, there's a lot of times at church, people see us coming and they're like, hurry up, get in the car. Grab the bulletin, get in the car. Everyone should be knowing when they see you coming, you've got some good news. You're excited. And this gets to this idea, for hospitality, is your table set all the time? Is your spiritual table set? When people come to your home and they're ready to be with you and enjoy being with you in relationship, do you open the door, greet them, hug them, and then leave them on the threshold? No, of course not. We bring them in. We bring them to a table that is set beautifully, that shows care and love. We need to start to learn to set spiritual tables. We bring these people in. We have our ask, but then we sit down and we develop the relationship. And that's when we're then going to go eyeball to eyeball.
And we can't give up. We have to just stay with it. We have to be patient. We have to accompany. We have to continue to provide those invitations. And Valerie knows this better than me. I get a little discouraged. I invite somebody 2 or 3 times and, you don't get the outcome. My gut as a man, I guess, is to kind of give up and move on to somebody else. And, she hangs in there. She's like, she never gives up the fight. And, and we have to really affirm and express a lot of gratitude and realize that a lot of people, we don't know what's going on in people's hearts, right? So we can't get disappointed in what we think other people aren't doing. They may have some heavy burdens and other things that, that are holding them back or something they have to struggle with. But we have to, show the spirit of generosity and be grateful for what they do.
And I think something also on the affirmation and the gratitude, I think is formators and as people that are in a position to love other people, it's very important to affirm people. It's very important to thank them. That extra thank you note, that extra phone call, that extra going up and hugging and saying, I'm so grateful you did that with me. Thank you for participating. Thank you for making that monthly donation. That affirmation sends the message to the person that you are aware, you're watching, you are appreciative. Especially if you just think about it in our own immediate families and communities, that person sometimes is just waiting for that word of affirmation. And if it doesn't come, your ask the next time is going to be a lot harder.
So we have to think about our time, talent, and treasure. We love alliterations. We can't take credit for this one, but
T3.
T3. Oh, so we're going to use the T3. It's like, okay. I love this picture also. It's Jesus calling Levi the tax collector. And shout out to Father Edward Hopkins, who did a great triduum. All his triduums are great, actually. But this one was especially fantastic with the artwork throughout. And a young man who actually missed the beginning and came in right at this reflection was really moved and said, oh my gosh, I'm actually the tax collector. And it really wasn't a talk about stewardship, but this picture, I think, kind of gets to the theme that we were talking about, that we have to listen to what God is telling us. All right, we're going to try to speed it up here because we're running a little late.
Absolutely. So 4 signs of a dynamic Catholic, Matthew Kelly. You're all familiar with Matthew Kelly, the great work that he's doing. But something that really touches me, because I love to evangelize, is this particular book that he wrote, The 4 Signs of a Dynamic Catholic. And in particular, I want to just talk about the generosity. In this chapter that he has on generosity, and I welcome you to read it if you haven't had a chance to look at this, but he really starts to point out what we're all experiencing in our churches and what we see, this 80-20 principle, right? And all of us love our church. All of us are trying to help our pastors and build the movement and witness to people. But we always look at, there's basically 7% in every parish that do all the work and provide all the funding. And of that 7%, only 1% have the gift of evangelization, folks. Let's think about that. So if you have that gift, you have to start making some ask and get out there. Right? We have to feel confident about that. But this whole idea of looking at the Lord's generosity in the Gospels, it's all over the Gospels. And the fact that he points out that the Catholic Church in America is really a sleeping giant, and we can make a lot of comparisons to the movement here, right? The stats are basically going to reflect what's happening in the churches, but if we just engage that other percent, even by 1%, and you break that down to your sections and your locality, that could be a huge difference. Just 1%.
And, you know, the 80-20 not even close, right? This 6 or 7% is supposed to be the 20, right? You know, you got 6 or 7 doing it. 80-20 actually seen a lot of things, but this is way off the mark. So, practical things. You know, we created this you know, this gift card for our locality. Gives people a way to sign up, do something in an intentional way again. You know, can I do something monthly? Can I do something weekly? This is just, you know, simple math, but, you know, $1 a day over 10 years is, you know, almost $4,000. You know, it's $5 a day. Obviously, if that's what you can do, great. If you can do more, you should do it. But if you plan it out and you think about what it is, and you work it into your family budget, then this is something we can all do. Just like Father John and his team has to look at his budget and figure out, you know, what we're going to do, what we can take care of, and the like. It takes a little bit of planning, and you will get much more comfortable with the outcome if you do that.
And the question again becomes for us, what is God asking of us here? What are we being asked to do?
This is just an example from you know, some of our recent fundraising efforts, and I'll just spend just a quick second here. You know, we started C4 not to raise money. We started to evangelize the culture, and you know, only a handful of people in our C4 group are Regnum Christi. Some have joined now, and we're hopeful others will. But many of them are becoming apostolates. So even if they don't, or apostles. So even if they don't join RC, we're finding that many of them help on the fundraising committee that Val talked about, or they're helping with 3 to Get Married, the Cana program. And so they're becoming very, very important apostles. But because they love what we're doing, they're also becoming, you know, a important source of funds. So I didn't put a slice there, but half of this other came from C4 people that were not on our radar screen 2 or 3 years ago, basically. So, you know, Lumen, we have a big, you know, Lumen contingent, so Lumen RC would typically mean the gentlemen's in Lumen and the spouses in RC only, obviously, and then this is what happened on the Lumen side. But growing this other pie and helping take the burden, for lack of a better term, you know, off the core movement is very, very powerful, and something, you know, that we can do. Just as we love our mission, I think many people who may not be called to join Regnum Christi still love our mission, and we should expose them to it. So we should keep it you know, we need to keep an eternal perspective, right? we can't be a holy order. You know, Val mentioned the self-storage. I mean, it's America, right? It is what it is. But, you know, to paraphrase what we heard in Luke, right? No matter how big and full the barn is, we're not taking it with us. So we all have to care for our needs. We have to feed our family. But we have to really think about, the greater picture here. I mean, these numbers are staggering, actually. There's 48,500 self-storage locations in the U.S. You can see the stats, really amazing.
And I think to keep in mind, too, that the people we are evangelizing in the culture, this is where their mind's at. So it's important for us to, as we lovingly approach them and make these asks, to understand that this whole idea of storing up is really where their mind is at, right? So when you try to convey taking off the top and producing this culture of generosity, not only within our family, but all those that we're evangelizing, that are being exposed to our apostolates and the time that the fathers spend with them, we have to start to keep all these things in mind of how they're living their daily lives and how they're making decisions, so that we can lovingly accompany them.
Now, the beautiful thing is, we are a family, and we love each other, but we have more than just our love for each other. We do have the Lord, right? So Sonny and Cher had a few things right. They definitely loved each other, but they didn't really have Regnum Christi, and they didn't. And so, you know, they had a few stumbles along the way. But we do have the love for one another, and we do have the Lord.
So, for the next 20 seconds, we ask you to take to prayer.
Our money is all been spent.
Well, I guess that's so we don't have a pot, so at least I'm sure of all the things we got.
So big.